Welcome to another episode of the 9 to 5 Casual Podcast. If you're new to our podcast, this is a platform where we discuss with entrepreneurs and young professionals on the rise. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify at 9 to 5 Casuals. Welcome Sola Osunsan, who is the technical account manager at Microsoft. We welcome you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, welcome,
Thanks for
Sola.
having me.
How's everyone doing today?
Good.
Good.
Everyone
Glad to be here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah.
How's everyone's weekend?
It was busy. It's a busy one.
Was
Very
busy.
busy. Anything exciting happen?
Power washing the patio and the
wow.
driveway.
Power washing the
Sound-
patio. Wow.
Yes.
That sounds very
Did you
exciting.
do it or you pay someone?
Oh, we did it.
I mean, you have to save, so that's good.
The
So is it
Nigerian
expensive to do? Like if you pay someone?
No, funny enough, we didn't even check. We just went. We know we could rent the power washer at Home Depot,
Yeah.
so we just went to get it. But the funny
Smart.
thing is, we went to the first Home Depot and we got the small one. When we turned it on, we're doing this. We're like,
It's
this is
not
not going
working.
to work.
Yeah.
Then we called Home Depot to say, come on, is there like a better? Is there a setting one? And they say yes, go to this other.
They didn't
Home
tell you that
Depot.
the first time?
They didn't say. So we went and we got the big one, and you could tell the difference. So yeah, that's what we spent the whole day
So
doing.
the whole driveway?
Yeah, the whole driveway.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's cool. How about you, Nanila?
Well, I didn't do much this weekend, but last week I took and passed my AWS Solutions
I
Architect.
saw that.
Congrats.
Thank you. I'm
Congrats.
waiting for the gifts.
Okay.
Okay.
No, when you get the job, promotion,
Yes,
we're waiting
we'll
for.
celebrate with
Right.
you.
Yeah.
I think she should take us out, right?
Yeah,
To celebrate.
for sure.
Once a new job
You're
comes.
making the big
Right.
bucks now,
After
right?
Corona.
Okay. You can't do
That's my
virtual
line.
party.
2 years later.
I'll still, don't worry.
I
I'll
take
still,
that back. I take that back.
While recording, so at least that promise is
Amen.
on the record now.
Right.
Yes,
And we're
save
gonna
that.
hold her to
Yeah.
it.
Like that,
On
Victor.
episode 3, Cindy's, you said.
So you can't take
Victor,
it back.
delete that.
No. You can't take that back.
All right.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
okay? Is in the atmosphere.
What about you, Ndidi? What you
Nothing.
been up to?
I've just been chilling. This Corona. So
What is chilling?
Yeah.
That sounds suspicious.
how?
Chilling.
No, I'm just low key. Chilling at home.
How's the dog?
She's good. Yeah,
Okay.
she's big. Yeah, she's doing good.
Well, I'm just gonna open with a question. So, Shola, how was it? How was the transition from Nigeria here to the US?
Oh, wow. Going straight into it.
Yeah, let's just get into it.
Nigeria to the U.S. So, born and raised in Nigeria, Surulere, Lagos. So I did primary school and secondary school in Nigeria. So I went to school in Surulere for primary school. It's school called Sunny Fields. Don't ask
I
me.
know it.
Really?
I grew up in Surulere.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Masha.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I grew up there.
So went to Sunny Fields for primary school, and then for secondary school, I went to Trinity International College in Ogun State. Some of the best times of my life, I guess. The transition coming from Nigeria to there's a lot of culture shock. A lot of culture. It's so. Here's the thing. I always came to America not always, but for a lot of summers I spent in America. My mom had a house here, so we would always come here for for summers, and so I was already used to the culture, but actually living it's just two different things. I can't remember if there's any specific incident that's happened that. But I just remember, just being. Oh, let me tell you what happened.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so
on campus. So, you know how Nigerians are heavily influenced by the British, right? And British people always dress up and all of that. So, on campus, me and my twin brother.
I'm just.
So me and my twin brother, we'll always dress
Oh,
up
wait, you
too.
have a twin brother?
I do have a twin brother, yeah. So I grew up in a family of 6 kids. I'm the last of the 6. I'm the second twin. So I have a twin brother. He lives in Canada. Great guy. So if you ever see someone that looks like me and doesn't say hi to you, it's probably my twin brother.
Are you guys identical?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'll do a challenge after this to see if you guys can tell the difference.
Yes, let's
boy.
do that.
But here's the deal though. I tell people if I show you a picture of both of us, you have to tell the difference. If you get it wrong, then I'll never speak to you again. And then if you get it right, we can be friends for life.
Oh,
Okay.
maybe there's a big mark or something. That's
No,
why
no,
you're so
me-
sure that we're gonna know.
So me and my twin brother are very, very identical. Like my mom for a very long time. didn't know
Oh,
the
you guys
difference.
pranked
Your
me.
mom didn't know
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah.
So
She's
wait,
gonna
tell
kill me
us
for saying
that.
that.
Tell us
Sorry.
that story, please. I want to hear the story.
The campus
The
one.
camp-
So
Campus
yeah,
story.
so we always dress normal. We wear jeans and like sneakers and a t-shirt to class. And somebody walked up to us one day. Why are you always dressed up?
All the time.
That's because everybody wears sweatpants,
Yes, everybody's
slides,
chill.
all of that. So I was like, I'm not dressed. I'm actually going to class. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know about
Because
you,
when you're from
but
Nigeria, you dress up. Like,
Yeah.
you
yeah,
just really dress up.
So that was one of the biggest culture shock that happened. But the transition wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. So I mean, I went to Texas Tech for undergrad. I studied industrial engineering, and also I think the year after I did my master's in data science. So it wasn't the transition was just like very revealing to see how people that grew up in two different places or two different situations, how they go about life and how they go about college. Because I found that a lot of people that were international, they were very serious about their studies, and some other
Yeah.
people were just like having the time of their life in
Party.
college. So, but transition wasn't too bad. So yeah,
I'm curious, were you in a dorm or like in a apartment, campus apartment?
I never got an apartment until I think the two years of my. So I did about 6 years in school. The last 2 years is when I got an apartment off campus, and then the last year I got a house off campus. But I always roomed with my twin brother.
That's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah,
like,
I
if you
always-
roomed with other people
I
or
could
things
even
like
even
that.
I could not room with anybody else. I did for a little bit, and I don't think the guy liked me. But
Are you sure you didn't like the guy or the guy didn't like
so
you?
yes, the thing. Yes, the thing. Right? Yeah. So here's the thing. Even my twin brother doesn't like living with me. So
Oh,
it's kind of like I get to things when I get to them. You can't
Okay,
really
so
tell me when to get to
procrastination.
them.
Can you
Okay.
tell that he's the common denominator here?
Yeah, so then
So
Yeah,
it's a you thing.
I
Not
never
the
said it
deaf
was.
thing.
I never said it wasn't.
Obviously.
I never said it wasn't.
I like your honesty.
Never said it wasn't.
It's more than one person. You have to really look at yourself, you know.
But yeah.
Okay. So what would you say kept you motivated? Because you're new in school in a different country. Your family is in there. Because you didn't have any family. Just your
I
brother,
did. I
right?
did.
You
So
had-
yeah. So my twin brother was there. My older brother, who's directly older
Oh, okay.
than me, he was in school as well. So we're all in tech. And my cousin was there as well, and so we had this little family, family. And then I met my cousin introduced me to her friends, and those are my best of friends
No.
to this very day. So I had a good support system when I transitioned. But ask a question again. There was something.
So yeah, what kept you grounded and motivated, basically,
So-
during your time there?
For the most part, it's having an end goal, right? The thing about it is that I feel like people go to college and they think that college is the rest of their life. It really is not. It is 4 years out of, think about it. If you die at 60, it's 4 years out of 60 years that you lived, right? So the big thing that really dawned on me was that there's a life after college, right? So it kept me motivated in the sense of I had to really show value for the time spent in
Yeah.
that 4 years afterwards. And then when I first got to campus, I started with a lot of majors. So I started with electrical and computer science. Yeah, I started with electrical and computer science because I thought I liked math, I liked physics, and I thought I had the biggest brain in the world. I realized real quick that's not it. And so I dropped my major from electrical and computer to just electrical. And then I was like, nope, I'm not doing it. I really respect anyone that has electrical engineering degree. I really respect them a lot. I have a very funny story. And so I was going to do math because I always knew that if I didn't understand anything in the world, I understood math. 1 + 1 is always going to equals 2, and I can put my trust in that. Okay. So I always I always liked math. So, and then I called my dad. I told my dad, Daddy, yeah, I'm about to change my major to be a math major. He's like, okay. just make sure that any major you do, you have to be able to you can actually
Use
work
it.
with it. I
Yes,
was like,
that's true.
come to find out that my mom actually studied like a math. She did actuarial science,
Oh,
which is
okay.
kind of like almost math. So I'm like, I don't know where the shade was there, but sure. But yeah, so I studied industrial engineering, and I really wished I started with it from the start, but I'm glad I ended up discovering it. So for me, it was making sure that, and then, so I had this dream or this goal. I guess maybe that was for every international student, is that, you know, to stay in America as long as I can.
Yeah.
Like, that was the goal.
Yeah.
Goal number one.
Yeah.
So I came to this country to stay as long as I can. So in order for me to achieve that goal, I had to have a good degree that would enable me to get a job that would eventually, from that job, I could get like a H-1B.
Yes.
From the H-1B is a visa that, you know, companies file for you to work. And then from there, if they really like you, they like, you know, file for you to have a permanent residency.
Really? I
So-
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
international.
that's
the
yeah.
journey of an international student
Is like-
is
really?
very
H1,
intense.
H1B.
It's very
Really?
intense.
Very.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
So
so many
the
ways.
goal was always to stay. I was like, they're going to drag me out of this country, but the goal was always to stay. And so having that in the back of your mind, you know, you can't really afford to make a lot of mistakes,
Yeah.
or
Right.
you can't really afford to slip on certain things. So I had to be on it with my GPA. I had to be
Yes.
on it with job applications.
And your
I had-
parents were also paying for your tuition,
Yeah, when you think about
right?
Yeah.
sacrifices they're making
No,
from a foreign
no.
country.
Because
like,
out of state tuitions
you
are
know,
spent.
international
Oh.
tuition,
So there's three. So there's the
In-state.
the in-state, out of state, and international.
international.
International pays like triple what
Yeah.
this
So,
in-state
let me
pays.
tell you
Well, we
Well,
have
it's
more.
waivers. We got like waiver scholarships. I don't know if you had
did
those.
not
I
get-
got
I
one.
wasn't smart like that.
Yeah, I got one.
But so let me tell you a funny story. Me and my cousin, my family friend cousin, we went to the same summer program, and her classes were like $50 per credit hour. So if she was doing a 3 credit hour class, it was $150. Mine was $150 for every credit hour class. So
Three
it was 3 times as much.
Yep.
So you think about that. And this is Nigerians, like, you know, the dollar to
Naira.
Yeah,
naira
it's
it's not a funny conversion. So it's not, I'm being for real, it's not funny. When you start doing the mathematics, you're like, wow.
Nigerian, you keep up real
Yeah.
quick.
When people will say dollar to one. Dollar is expensive. So it's my parents sacrificed a lot. It wasn't until I grew up and I started seeing, or I started affording my own lifestyle and stuff.
No.
That it's like, I don't even know how. Were you people stealing?
How did you do this?
How do people do this? So it's like, I really like these days. My mom sacrificed a lot. I see it. I'm like, wow. I don't. Because here's perspective, right? We're 6 kids. We all went to undergrad and masters. We all have our masters. So that's 6 different colleges. We're all international. Everyone schooled in. Everyone but the eldest schooled in America. So all 5 of us went to
Wow.
undergrad and masters in America.
Wow.
And then the eldest, he schooled in London. And even London conversion is still
London-
it's still not cheap. So essentially, you really appreciate parents that were
Yeah,
able to
yeah.
sacrifice. So there's almost nothing that like my mom or my dad will ask me for
That you
today that
can't
like
do.
I wouldn't find a way to get it done. So yeah. So transition, and you know what kept me motivated is, you know, staying. I just want to. I like this country.
So building a life
Yeah,
here.
but then again, even when he talks about his family, he's the last of 6.
Yeah.
And it looks like in the Osunsan family, there's this trajectory. They have like this unwritten law that everybody goes to the US, they do
Yeah.
their undergrad,
Yes.
they do their
Yeah.
masters. So as the last child in a Nigerian
Yeah.
home, like you have, you
have to
can't, you
follow
gotta
their
follow that
footstep.
line.
Yeah.
So my big brother, it's funny, like, you know, my parents never told me what to go study.
Okay.
They never said you have to study engineering. They never said you have to study. Like, the only thing my dad ever said is make sure you get a degree that you can actually use.
Marketable.
Very
That's all he
important.
said. He didn't say go study this or go study that. But I think we are 3 engineers, an accountant, an economist, business analyst, and then also my sister studied public health. So one of my big sisters, very smart. She's she's one of the smartest girls I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
Excuse me. I'm smart.
Yeah, but I'm
Calm
talking about my
down.
sister. I'm talking about my sister.
Relax.
So she was always a goal that my parents always used for me to keep, and that kept me motivated, and she kept me motivated as well. She's on it.
So, how did your undergrad and masters pave your way to getting this great opportunity with Microsoft?
So I'll tell you something that my sister, when I tell young professionals, I tell people that are in college, my sister told me something that she doesn't even remember. This is the funniest thing. We had a conversation about it. She doesn't remember telling me, but she told me, whatever you do, make sure. She was talking in the sense of applying for jobs. Whenever you apply, make sure they don't tell you no because of you. Make sure that it's on them, in the sense of maybe they don't accept international students for that job role. It could be that the company doesn't pay for it or whatever the case may be. Make sure that you build yourself in such a way that nobody can really say no to you. So that was one thing that was always at the forefront of my mind, is that like I said, my goal was to stay in America, so how to get a good job, good GPA. And so for me, I was always networking, and I'm making sure you have the right friends. You can't really tell your friend's future, but surrounding yourself around the right people. But specifically to how my majors contributed to it, I think the journey of engineering changed the way I thought. So I said that I studied computer science and electrical engineering, at least for a semester. The classes I took changed the way I thought. I think there was a logic class that I took that is like if and statements. So if this happens, do this,
That's
right?
like
So
coding.
literally, I could be driving and I'm just seeing that all these creations we have in life has some type of logic back behind it. And so you see that even what's this thing called? The lights, traffic lights, right? Every time I say traffic, I'm like, there is a logic behind it that it says turn green, turn red, turn yellow, right? There's logic behind it. So all of that, I would say that's why I don't regret changing majors or the journey I had. All of that contributed into me getting the job. But I would say it was more of my resume than just my major that actually got me where I am. So here's the thing. Like I said, I'm an international student, and essentially I didn't get a lot of internships. It was very interesting. It was very painful because I would coach my friends on how to get jobs.
And
I would
they'll get
literally tell them go into the interview, say this, say this, say this, say this, and they will get the job. I'll go for the same job interview. I wouldn't get it. I wouldn't get it.
That brings me to ask you. So, right after you got out of college, Microsoft was not the first
Wasn't
company that you interviewed with.
Yeah.
So you had interviewed with other companies
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, the way I built my resume at the time was, for instance, when you are in college, you have a senior project. Your senior project, you sometimes you work with companies and stuff like that. So that was on my resume. I went to Korea. I spent like a month in Korea. I worked with
that's
Hyundai.
nice.
Yeah. I just played solitaire all day.
Don't say that.
But it brings out a very specific point, right? Is that my journey was filled with a lot of programs. So I encourage people that find out what programs are in your school, what programs are in your community, because there's a program out there that is there to help you. It could be specifically for Black people or minorities, or specifically for women in technology or women in this. There's a program out there that I can bet that you can apply to that can benefit you. So there was a program that was in school. I signed up for. I didn't know what I was doing that summer. I couldn't get any internship, right? So I signed up for that program as at least I can put it on my resume. So right now, so I worked at Cisco for my senior project. I did this. I worked at Hyundai, so I put that on my resume that I worked at Hyundai for the program, right? And then the third company I worked for was AT&T. And I didn't even get that through like an internship. It was a program, like I said, that was going on in Dallas that was targeted for minorities to get them internships in, big companies to make sure they get that experience. So I worked for AT&T. So when I did that, and then of course I kept my GPA, I had an engineering background, and then there was a certificate that I got while I was in school was Six Sigma. I got that through.
My friend got that, so I heard it's very hard.
Exactly. So I did
That's
it.
good.
It was a weekend course that we took, and someone literally coaching you through the program, right? So that, as a professional, if I was going to do that right now, it's going to cost me probably $1,500 to $2,000 or $3,000 or something. When I was in college, it only cost me like $400 or something. So that's why you have to be sharp. You have to make sure you're alert, making sure you're taking advantages of all those different programs, right? So that body of work that I put together on my resume made me pretty qualified. And so whenever and I applied to Microsoft when I had my master's. So not even undergrad. So I worked for AT&T. I was applying for jobs. I couldn't get a job. Went back to go get my master's in data science. And I put that because, at the time, and it's still a very big degree to have. I don't use my degree today. I did learn some things that actually helped me in my job, actually helped me a whole lot in my job. And so that body of work, that resume that I put together, whenever my friends recommended me for internships and stuff, like I ended up getting through this program. I came in through a college hire program. And so there's one thing that I want to let people know is that, don't downsize the opportunity, right? I came in through, I had a master's degree, but I was hired someone that had undergrad. But I knew that if I came in, I could perform at the level that I believe I'm at. And then from there, that's where doors actually opened up. So it's kind of like just because, you do an internship, and because even AT&T, I was a senior in college, but I was working with high school people, like both of us were in the internship together, right? So the thing about it is that you don't want to downsize or downplay any opportunity you have. Instead, use that opportunity to your advantage, build that body of work about yourself. At least going back to what my sister said, if you then saw my resume, you'd be like, oh, this guy has a good resume. Yeah. You don't even know if I'm an international student. You don't even know whatever about me. But at least that resume was able to get me through the door. So I had a very good friend of mine. We're like brothers. He's like my very, very good friend. He was one that put my resume in for the college hire program. I went through the interview. It was a very funny process because I actually interviewed with Microsoft twice. So once was on my own, and I didn't get the job that time, but almost a month later, they called me back to come and get that job. But at that time, I already got the job that I have today. So God works in mysterious ways. But aside from that, he put my resume in. And then I got an email. It was the weirdest thing in the world. It was some Microsoft at yellow.com. I was like, this is 419. I was like, the only time I've heard yellow is MTN or whatever. MTN. Exactly. MTN is a wireless provider in Nigeria. That was the only time I've heard yellow. I called and I was like, dude, these people are trying to scam me. He's like, no, congratulations, you got it. I was like, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it. And then there was a date that I was supposed to show up. And there was
Did you show up?
I did. I did. I wasn't taking chances. I definitely did. I showed up and they had food and stuff like that. I was like, okay, this is legit. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it until that very day. I was like, I'm going to show up. I'm going to exchange the emails and all of that. But I didn't really believe it until that very day. Showed up and, we had a dinner the night before, and then the next day we had an interview, and God willing, I got the role. I got the job 15 minutes after the interview. They sent me an email Microsoft works quick.
That's good.
And speaking about the interview, how was that interview process like? So can you highlight some do's and don'ts from Microsoft?
So I've interviewed people in Microsoft that I want to come into Microsoft, but I'll also talk about my experience. The interview process was it's not scary as people think, like, working for Amazon or working for Microsoft or Google is. It was, I can tell you that Microsoft hires for people, like the person itself. Like, there was something I was reading recently that Warren Buffett says, which I believe, and that's what I go into interviews with. People hire for integrity, people hire for intelligence, and people hire for energy. Those are the three things that, like, I personally am looking for whenever I'm interviewing
you
people.
want to work with someone where
Yep.
you don't have to wake up, oh my God, I have to work with this person today.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my process was it was a college hire program, so there was a bunch of us that were there. And I came in my very nice suits. People say I always dress
Have
up.
you seen
So
Sola when he dresses up?
wore my suits,
So imagine
wore my tie,
interview.
wore everything. There's one shirt I have that is from London. I actually love that shirt. It makes me feel like I own a company.
Is that your interview special?
I don't wear that shirt unless I'm going to an interview, bro. Like, so I wore, like, I was like,
Serious.
I was ready that day. So I came in, and then luckily enough, I actually met so they interview in 2 waves or 3 waves. There's a informal presentation. Most of the time, I guess, at least for my division, we usually have an informal presentation where we ask you to present on, something that you're passionate about. To me, that's the most important part of the interview, because I can tell who I'm going to vote for in that 15 minutes that you interview, that you do that presentation. So, and it's like people try and come in and try and interview and, present on Microsoft technology. No, do not do that. Because I deal with Microsoft technology every day. What are you going to tell me that
I don't know.
Right.
They're just
I'm
going
already
to
sure.
Yeah, so the thing about it is that, like, when it says something that is passionate, they really want you to be passionate about it. Because here's the thing, people can teach you technology, but people can teach you passion. So if you really show up and you're someone that likes makeup, and you spend that 15 minutes educating people about makeup, best
They'll be
believe that,
impressed.
like, you're halfway there already. So I presented on fashion. In college, I used to produce fashion shows, or I guess I won't say in college. In general, I produce fashion shows. And so I presented on fashion and, technology and fashion and how technology can improve fashion. Luckily enough for me, there was a Nigerian lady that was actually interviewing me. So already I was like, sister,
My sister.
please, hook it up. But, I didn't let that, make me lazy in any way, shape, or form, right? But, I talked about, like, project management during me producing fashion shows, right? And
So it was connected to something.
exactly, so they could relate to it. So they, at that level, that was like, team members that you were interviewing with. Then I went to go interview with managers. So there were 2 managers that I was interviewing with. And they, one of the best interviews I had in my life. I walked in and I was like, because I thought that, because initially the first people I interviewed with, they asked me about, what's your passion, blah, 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 blah. I did that presentation. I thought they were going to ask me again. So I was like, you're not going to ask me? And he's like, oh, no, okay, go ahead. Tell me about it, right? And so I did. And turns out that, one of the guys that was interviewing me was, his daughter was a model.
Ooh.
And so he
Look
could
at that.
already relate with what I was saying.
Wow.
And so the whole conversation throughout that interview was in context of fashion, right? How would you, so I work in kind of like customer service, right? So everything was then in context of how would you do this with a model that's a diva. I was like, look, I've been dealing with model divas for years. I just had, like, I was actually triggered. I was like, damn, there's a lot of people that came to mind. So I always talked about how I managed the situation and stuff like that. And so after that conversation, I went to go check out, and then I was driving and I get this email. I almost crashed my car. I was like, welcome Microsoft Works Group. What location do you want to be? I was like, oh.
Wow,
Okay.
they could not wait.
I'm
Though.
telling
We
you.
have to get him.
Bro, don't read emails and drive, guys.
I don't do that.
Disclaimer.
But yeah, so that's how the process is. Whenever I interview for people, it's kind of like be your
I
original
need
self.
to take notes.
Yeah, be your original self. Like I said, people will hire for integrity, intelligence. Intelligence is more about, it's not do you know the product or do you know, it's can you comprehend? Like, you know, are you teachable?
Yes.
I can tell you that there are a lot of people that work in Microsoft that don't have any background in technology. There's a lady that we actually hired. I remember I was part of the people that hired and voted for her. She had undergraduate studies as her background, or as her major in college. Undergraduate studies has nothing to do with technology, right? But she works for Microsoft today. So it's a big deal. Like, be yourself, be your true self. Don't try and be somebody
something
else.
that you're
Like,
not.
you know, of course, be professional. Don't start bringing things that should not be
Right.
into it. But be focused on the mission at hand. Like, you know, just as much as we always tell people, just as much as we're interviewing you, you're interviewing us, right? So you definitely want to make sure, is this company a match for you?
Yeah.
Is this team a match for you? But also know that they're actually judging if you're a match for them, right? So that's where the energy piece comes in. Like, I truly believe that, you know, you have to have the right level of energy to work at Microsoft, because it can be tough sometimes. But
So I was so sorry. I don't want to lose. So you did mention something, right, that
Yeah.
I really love, and you said that when you got hired at Microsoft, and just please correct me if you're wrong. That at the level you shouldn't have been at that level, right?
in my opinion, yes.
Right. So, because I can relate to what you're saying, because if you're at my job, I felt the same way. So, I was talking to one of the managers who is my mentor, and I was telling him, you know, venting to him.
Yep.
And I don't think I should be at this level. I have this, I have that, blah,
Yep.
blah, blah. Because he had interviewed me before for a role.
Yep.
And I didn't, well, obviously with contracts and everything, they couldn't
Yep.
take me from my position and transfer me. It was a whole lot of paperwork. So one thing he said, and one thing he said, and it has stuck with me till today. He was like, you know, we have this culture or this thing that we do at the company where you come in, you have you have the certifications and everything, right? We have a big candy shop. That's how he described it to me. We have a big candy shop, and you come in, we have you stand outside and look inside.
Yep.
Just look at the different flavors, look at everything.
Yep.
And then, you know, we give you like 6 months, 7
Yep.
months, and then gradually we'll open that candy shop,
Yep.
and then we'll let you in, like, pick what you want. You know,
Yep.
now you have the opportunity to pick what you want because you've grown, you know, the culture, you know, everything. So I've spoken to a lot of, you know, people. A lot of people think that, okay, I'm just out of college, right? Or I have the certification. I need a 6-figure job right
Nope.
off the back. It doesn't work like that.
I can bet
you need
that.
experience.
I can bet that, like, you know, a lot of people always think that, oh, I'm trying to get that 6 figures. A lot of people don't make 6 figures.
Yeah.
Right? Like, even right now, I don't make 6 figures. I big story for a different day. But
But you still make money. That's good.
I do, but technically, at least my base is not 6 figures. It's close, very close to it, like probably $1 off, but it's not. It's not 6 figures. But
you're there.
when I started at Microsoft, I didn't make 6 figures, right? And I remember I got the offer, and I called my friend. I was like, should I negotiate? Blah blah blah. It's like Microsoft came strong for me. Like, you know, I didn't have to negotiate, right? So I was like, first of all, keep in mind, remember my goal. My goal is to stay in America. All of this one is just Jara. So as long as I could, you know, pay for, and it was actually what I was making was more than enough. Like, coming out of college or first job, it was good enough for me, right? I was single, and
started life.
like, you know, I was saving a lot of money, bro. Like, I was single and stuff like that. So I would say, like, one thing that kept me focused when I believed that I had that level of disparity, because people would say that, or there were rumors that, like, you know, if you have an MBA, you were supposed to be at this level. I was like, my master's in this thing is you know, you are telling me MBA, I'm telling you master's. So essentially, the thing that kept me motivated is that, like, I truly believe in God, and like, you know, God is the focus, is the center point of all the things that I do. And, you know, I really cried out to God, like, you know, God, make this right. And God did. Like, literally 2 years after, like, you know, I skipped a level, right? And so to me, it's kind of like,
I
you know,
remember you giving that, talking about that.
yeah. So to me, it's kind of like, at least at this point, I'm where I'm supposed to be, right? So essentially, I think, like, you know, enjoy the journey. Like, you know, as long as I truly believe that as long as you're performing and you're doing what you need to do, like things will work out.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
happen overnight. You
Yeah.
just have to work
Thank
at it.
you.
I was gonna ask you, when you talked about the interview, did you know coming in that Microsoft had these different phases of interview? Is that something that was communicated to you?
I did not.
Or that was just take the ball and run?
Yeah, I didn't. So that's why it's very good for you to be prepared. That's why I truly believe in you showing up as a professional and you being your true self. If you're applying for a role, a specific role, let's say a project manager, and you claim you're a PMP, know the PMP stuff.
Yep.
Like, if you claim you're a Scrum Master, know the Scrum Master stuff, right? So to me, I didn't know the whole process. I was actually, there's a funny story. There was in the dinner that we had prior to the interview, someone asked me a question about a Microsoft product. It's like, can you tell me about, because they had you were meeting people that you were going to interview with tomorrow. It's like, do you know what HoloLens is? I had
Never heard that.
no idea. I was like, Jesus is Lord. I showed up and I wasn't prepared. That night I was, but he said something that I did, right? He said that come back tomorrow and tell me what you know about it. So that's why I did all that research.
That was
And
good.
he didn't interview me tomorrow, the next day, but I made sure I went to go find out. I was
Right.
like, here's what I
And did
found
you
out.
talk
Yes.
about it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
did.
did.
So he probably went and he asked questions.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So essentially, to me, I really don't care what the interview I know people that have been through brutal interviews, like six interviews. Like,
That's a lot.
I'm like, jeez.
Sorry.
I don't really care about the interview process. I truly believe in you making sure that you are fit for the role, so to speak.
That's cool. I just asked that because for our audience out there, when you say this, that they should just know that you don't know what you're going to expect, so be always prepared.
Yeah.
And somebody once told me that the best interviews when you go in and you start having a conversation.
Yep.
Yes.
It's always a conversation.
That's how I
Conversation.
interview too.
Yep.
Yes.
I turn it into a conversation.
Conversation.
I always find something that I can find in common with them.
Yep.
Right,
And
the
I talk about that, so they
fashion.
forget all the difficult
Right.
questions.
Before you know, you're talking about
Yeah,
dogs and
that's-
kids,
that's what
and
I
you're
do.
like, and the time is up.
And so they see your
Yep.
social side, they see you can communicate, they,
Yeah.
they
Yep.
like your personality.
That's why I said usually in
That's what I
15
always
minutes
do.
I already know if I'm going to hire the
Exactly.
person. or
When
not.
I interviewed at Accenture, the first manager who interviewed me had me shaking. This guy asked me a question. He was like, "Oh, I see that you are Red Hat certified. So what have you done?" So I told him, I was like, "Oh, the company that I was working for, we have a couple of websites. So I had to schedule a cron job." So he was like, "Okay, yeah, tell me the process." So I had to give him all the commands
Yep.
that I used, and he kept asking me questions. The
Yep.
funny thing is, I had issues scheduling that current job.
So the thing, so sorry to cut you off. Another tip for interviews is when they ask you a question, tell a story. So let's say if he asks you, how did you use this?
Yeah.
You try to make a story. When I get in the morning, this is what I do. Like, talk about the functions. Then that way,
Yeah.
guess what? Even if you're BSing, you're
So
gonna.
I wouldn't encourage that,
No.
and I'll tell you why. The reason why he asked all those questions is, here's the thing: you don't want to come into an interview. There's different rules of school of thought on it, right? You don't really want to come into an interview trying to be the smartest guy in the room. Like, let your resume speak for you. But I remember I think they said back then in Microsoft, people were asking questions to see. All they wanted you to hear from me was, let me get back to you, and let me research this and I'll get back to you on that, right? Because here's the thing: the guy will go down the rabbit hole as far as
That's
you,
what
Right.
he,
as far as you let him go.
that's
Yeah.
As
what
far as
he
you let him
did
go.
to
But that's
me.
why I
You,
said.
like halfway through, you've already shown him competence. And I know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
but
what-
he will go down the rabbit
Right.
hole
Yeah.
until you
Right.
don't know
They just
something.
look
That's
that
what
right.
happened,
Yeah.
And that's why I said,
And
don't,
they're testing
don't,
you to
don't,
see if you
don't
really
let
know
them
what
go
you're
into
doing.
the comments.
Yeah.
I press this.
Yeah.
Just talk about all the other functions and who knows.
That's
And how
what
you
he
fixed
did.
it.
That's
Right.
what he
Okay.
did, right?
Yeah.
And then he asked me. I kept going. We were going for like 5 minutes. I was like, "What kind of nonsense is this?"
Yeah.
I almost cried. And then he was like, And then he was like, so what happened? Did it work? Honestly, it
didn't
didn't work
work.
because I had issues. So I was like, it didn't work. He was like, so what did you do?
Oh,
I
boy.
reached out to one of the
Yeah.
then at that time I was
And she
like, no,
picked
you
the
have to.
story that she had an issue.
Yeah.
That
So I was
already
like,
a
I reached out to
problem.
one of the top developers there who also knew that system,
Okay.
and I did some research, and we worked from there.
But sometimes that you say that you pick a scenario where you didn't do so good is not a bad idea, because
Yeah.
that way it
Yep.
shows them problem
Yeah,
solving.
yeah.
You know,
And that you're
because
not just perfect
at
all
a
the time.
team you're gonna work with people, you're
Yep.
gonna escalate. So what
True.
are you open to that? It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be. I have to be right all
How do
the
you
time.
resolve
I
conflict?
did it great.
Yeah,
You know,
they
so
want to hear that
yeah.
too. So
Yeah, it's just it reminds me back in the day. I think it was like the recruiting firm. Some of them would have you actually come take a test.
yes,
And
I've heard that.
in test, you would like if you say you're good at Excel, you tell them
my
you're an
gosh.
8 or 9. No,
you do
have
it.
you will be
prove
doing
it.
that
Yes.
test. After
Yeah.
you pass that test, you will now. So you would first of all you do an oral or verbal interview with them. Then you do the test. Then before they start pushing your resume out to their clients, I'm
Yep.
like,
Oh my goodness.
I-
So,
yeah.
so your current title now is the technical account manager.
Actually, that changed on Friday.
Oh,
wow.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Did you
Sola.
something better or?
Well, we'll see. We'll find out more this week.
Oh,
Catch us
wow.
next time.
Okay. So
My
currently-
current title is a customer success account manager.
Okay.
So they
okay.
probably changed it, right?
Can you describe what you do
Same
in that
thing.
role?
I was just
Same
about to
They
thing.
say.
probably just upgraded the name, right?
Yeah, they upgraded the name and gave more. At least that's what they're telling me. They gave more power to the role.
Okay.
So before, the way we work with customers, it was kind of like there's an account team and then there's the TAM. But now the TAM is part of the account
Account
team.
team.
Okay.
So it's kind of like I'm one of the three. The way I look at it is I'm one of the three legs in a stool that has a say-so
Okay.
on what
That's good.
happens with the customer. So essentially, that's
So
why
tell us about the companies you manage right now. What do you
I
do?
cannot
Accounts?
speak.
You can't speak,
I cannot
yes.
speak. I can speak about the industry.
Okay, yeah,
so
do that.
essentially, I manage right now. I manage 2 customers that are in chip manufacturing.
Chip.
So if you Google, you can find or Bing. Actually, Bing it.
I didn't use big.
I don't.
Sorry.
Google.
if you Bing it, you can probably figure it out. But I work in Austin right now, and I work with 2 chip manufacturers.
Okay.
And right now, I'm aligned to a manufacturing organization as in Microsoft. So we recently, I don't even know if I can speak about it, but we recently did a reorg that aligned us to different industries: retail, automotive, professional services, X, Y, and Z. And so I fall under manufacturers.
So what's the day in the life of a TAM?
Yep.
Like, is there a certain amount
Yes.
of accounts you have
have-
to
you
manage?
don't have
Is
to
there a
give us
quota?
details,
Like,
just,
how does
you
that
know.
work?
COVID has changed everything around. I'm joking.
So
But-
before COVID.
Pre-COVID.
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 So daily life of a technical account manager at Microsoft it's very, sometimes people say it's a catch-all role. I would say it's like 50%, which has changed now, but in the past it was like 50% sales and 50% delivery. Delivery meaning that a customer makes an investment in a contract and make sure that they get value out of that contract. So think about your computer. Like, you use on a day-to-day, you have issues with your computer, and sometimes you YouTube it, you Google it, and you fix it, right? But now think about bigger systems where customers have made a lot of investment in Microsoft and all this integration. So essentially, I provide reactive support. I bring engineers that provide reactive support to troubleshoot, and then also I provide engineers that provide proactive support. So a lot of it is, it's kind of like project management.
I was just
It's
gonna ask.
customer service. It's
Everything in one.
it's sales. It's everything.
So are you the project manager, or do you work with an internal project
I am
manager that
not
reports?
I'm
that
not the
gives you
project
status to
manager.
report?
Officially, I'm not the project manager because they do have project managers for specific projects that are sold. They have project managers for that, but you can almost say I'm the project manager for my contract, because the thing about it is I have to plan the services. I have to make sure that it's within budget. I have to do stakeholder management,
Okay.
all of that good stuff. So
So
you
like,
can say that I'm somewhat of a project manager.
so you're
Yeah.
pretty much the point of contact between
Yep.
your client and
Yep.
Microsoft.
If anything goes wrong with the client, it's me they're
Your
looking
head
for.
is on your head is on the chart.
So, are you required to take any type of certifications?
Recently, yes.
Okay.
In the past, no, because Microsoft had a strategy of having their technical account managers have business acumen. So one of the biggest things was stakeholder management. Can they put you in front of a CEO or a CIO and you would like deliver and whatever, right? So it was business acumen that was the big focus for a while. Now we're moving into technical acumen. So the past year, they encouraged us, or actually it was a requirement for us to have at least fundamental knowledge in Microsoft technology. So some people are specific to some Microsoft technologies, but anything that is Microsoft that my customer use, I'm responsible for it. And so what I did was I had by the end of this, or by April of this year, I had all 4 fundamental certificates.
So what are those certifications?
Azure fundamentals.
I was going to ask that. I took that.
M365 fundamentals, Dynamics fundamentals, and Power Platforms fundamentals. So I have all 4 of those certificates. Now I want to do the Azure Administrator.
And does Microsoft cover those, or you?
Microsoft does. I can take as many tests as I want, all of that. So, but one thing I want to point out, because I think that's the point of your question, is I recommend anybody that's actually wanting to work for a tech company to have at least fundamentals in one of the companies. It could be AWS, it could be Google, it could be Microsoft, right? Go get a fundamental certificate, because at least it shows that you understand the cloud. Like, people say, I mean, we can have a conversation about the cloud. What is SaaS? What is PaaS? What is IaaS? Some people don't know any of the stuff that I just mentioned, right? But that's kind of like what you're going to be thrown into. I remember, like, for the first year of me being Microsoft, I didn't understand nothing. I was just like, I didn't even understand. But it was a call I was on recently that I understood everything that these people were talking about. And they were talking about some deep stuff. I was like, TCOs and the SLOs. I'm like, I know what that is.
You're
Yeah.
like,
I took that certificate. I know what that
like
is.
look, this is how far I have come.
I was really proud of myself. I was like, I wasn't lost.
So you did mention Microsoft Fundamental, right?
Yep.
Honestly, I used to work for a startup company. It was mostly used Microsoft products.
Yep.
The first thing this is my first entry level job, and she threw me right into the Microsoft Azure.
Yep.
It wasn't even the fundamental. She didn't even tell me to go for the fundamental, because that clients, if you're working, because we're hosting their websites and stuff, so you need to be Microsoft certified. And I heard that certification, the Microsoft Azure, the was it the
Administrator,
solutions?
Cloud Solution Architect.
It's very hard.
Yes,
But
it is.
I had no idea they even had the fundamental.
That's why I was so happy you got your AWS Cloud Solution Architect.
Yeah.
No, because here's the thing, like, in this industry right now, if you want to get a job, right, go be a Cloud Solution Architect. If you can get a certificate that has Cloud Solution Architect, that carries heavy weight. I don't even have that, right? And I'm because I'm scared to take the
You're
thing.
smart. You
But
got this.
so the thing about it is that, like, like, she's right that, challenge yourself. Like, as far as you can, start from somewhere. I'm not saying that you have to be a Cloud Solution Architect. There are different roles that you can do. That's why I said fundamentals. If I see a resume that comes across my desk, and I see that person has, Azure fundamentals, that's like 50% already. Like, and that's why, like, any like, for the past 6 months, anybody that asks me, I'm looking for a job, I'm like, go get this fundamental, because it gives me a grounds to stand on that when I go to my manager, like, oh, he is already certified in this, blah 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 blah. Like, he understands what the cloud is, or she understands what the cloud is. So definitely, that's, I would say, at least do the fundamentals, then challenge yourself to get the administrator and get the Cloud Solution Architect, because not even Microsoft, people pay money. People will pay money to have you work for them.
And I think just to tie to one thing you said is pretty much is if you're looking for a job out there, look at the trend.
Yeah.
What is the trend?
Yep.
Everybody's going to the cloud.
Yep.
So if you want to stand out in a stack of resumes,
Yep.
make sure you have
Because
something cloud.
Yeah.
I can bet that 3 cloud solution architects applied for the same job,
Yeah.
and you don't have any certificate.
Right.
that-
Already eliminated.
so essentially, yeah, you're right. That's the biggest thing about job hunting. First of all, I don't wish that on my enemies. Job hunting is very hard. It's
Right.
very brutal. I was job hunting for a good 6 months. Like, you know, you really, like, you know, you spend all this time in school and then you're like, what was all of that for, right? It really, it's very humbling, very, very humbling.
Yes. Yeah.
But now I forgot my train of thought. But yeah.
Okay,
job
what's next for you at Microsoft? Do you think? What do you think's next for you?
I've been asking myself that question.
You just got the
Are you
success
thinking about
added,
going
so that's
more
a new
into
door, right?
management or
I'll-
leadership roles?
Eventually, yes. Eventually, I think
That's the
I
goal.
have what it takes to be a leader. And so for me, in a what's the thing called? Yeah, when the road splits,
I
In
know
the
what you're talking
path?
about. I can't remember.
a fork in the road.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm at a point where there's a fork in the road
Okay.
and stuff like that. So essentially, I'm debating if I should get more technical or more business oriented, right? So either way works. Like, you know, in Microsoft, you can be successful in whatever you want to do. The big thing about it is that, like, you know, you show up and you show value. That's what there are a lot of people that fly under the radar, and you know they get by, and people notice. People notice when you're just getting by.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
people also notice when you are putting in the hard work.
Yep.
Like me moving to Austin was my manager that he saw I had this customer in San Antonio that is not an easy customer. Like only senior level people actually have that customer. And I was just coming out of college and they gave me that customer. And so while I was successful, they always had bad reviews, but the year that I was with them, they had 2 good reviews.
Oh,
wow,
that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So my manager saw all of that and he was like, you know what? I have your next challenge. He gave me the most brutal customer in our listing, but I was able to tame them, right? So
that's good.
I won't use the word tame. I was able to work with them and turn the account around. Like it was really, really bad. But now the customer is like my best friend.
So do you meet these customers face to face? You do a lot of
Yeah,
traveling?
it's a lot of face to face. Now it's remote, but it's a lot of face to face. So that's why I said, you know, executive presence is the word. We always hired for executive presence because any day they can tell me to go talk to the CEO. Any day they could tell me to go talk to the CIO. And so I've talked to CEOs, I've talked to CIOs, senior business managers in IT companies. And like, you know, we work with a lot of big companies. So you can imagine the people that we talk to. So at first, that was what I struggled with, is that, like, you know,
was gonna
this
ask that.
this small boy from Nigeria just coming to come and tell you what to do about your environment. But, you know, after I realized that I'm there to help, right? And I started understanding more and more of the products and more of the situations that customers put themselves in. Like, gave me more audacity to say, Chairman, sorry, please, you're not doing the right things here. You need to do this.
And it's good you also say that, because coming to the whole your transition from Nigeria to the US, I feel like myself in my professional journey, I think I struggled with that too, because when you are put in a situation where you talk to you're in IT as a project manager, you're talking to senior level all the time, or you have to interact with them. It's just that Nigerian respect, you know how you cannot really tell an older person no.
What to
Like
do,
it's finding that balance, and if you're not careful,
But it helps you though. It helped me a lot because I put a lot of respect on I don't talk about my customers anyhow. There are some people in the company that they just bash,
right.
like that, but I don't talk about my customers because I respect them, right? Even my manager, me and my manager were like, one of my old managers, me and the guy were very, very cool. The guy would call me, Shola, I'm at the pool. Do you want to come out?
Oh, okay.
But it took a very long time for me to,
Feel that comfortable.
really be a friend than an employee.
Right.
It took a very, very long time because I was like, you are Oga.
Right.
I am the worker.
Right, you need
Like,
to.
it's yes sir, no sir, yes sir,
Like,
no sir, right?
it's built in.
So, but to me, it helped. But one another point that I feel like, you know, people always especially for international people, that they always, I guess, get stuck on is like, the way we speak, like, language barrier, or can you hear me clearly? People work with a lot of intentional people,
Right.
Asians, Indians, like, half of the time I don't understand what somebody else
I
is
was
saying.
going to ask about
So-
that with the whole accent and everything. I
don't have an
get
accent.
so
Joking.
so I was going to ask about that because I mean, some people are very rude. They will straight up tell you. I mean, when I used to work for Apple.
No name calling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Too late.
I used to work for Apple and
company.
I was helping. Oh yes. Anyways, I'm so
That's
Don't
okay.
do
and this older guy was on the phone and I'm trying to help him out. He was like, "Well, I can't hear you. You need to speak English." And I was like, "Well, you're responding. That means you can hear me." And he was like, "Transfer me to someone else." I transferred him. My manager actually got mad at me. He wasn't mad. He was like, "Next time, don't transfer him because if he can respond to you, he's hearing you."
Yeah.
So till now, I talk to
I like managers like that because in situations like that, people need to fight for those people.
Yeah.
right? I 100% understand, like, because I deal with a lot of people that are international that support our customers, and when some people complain about not unnecessary things, but some people just are not nice people.
Let's just put it that way.
They're not nice
They're very
people. So when they are not nice, you really have to put them in their place because we're here to help you. You can't just bash people just because, right? Yeah.
And another thing too is if you come with an understanding that everybody has an accent. Like I have an accent, an American has an accent. If you're from the south or the north, we all if you go, everybody has an accent. You're just gonna have to deal with mine. I can repeat myself, but you have one.
Yeah.
So when did you discover you had like a passion for fashion show production?
Passion for fashion.
You
Passion
had
for
no
fashion.
idea
Ooh,
when
it
I
rhymes.
was
that's
like,
very
wait, he's a
unique thing.
Fashion show.
Fashion show
fashion show
producer.
producer.
Yeah.
Since when?
So I did it 2013.
Oh, wow, that's a long
So I
That was
studied.
your first.
That was the first
show?
one.
Okay.
We did in college. We did it 5 years, and I oversaw it for at least 3 of those 5 years.
Okay.
And it was one of the best things. I actually really enjoyed the journey of it. I would say proudly that it's probably the best fashion show that has ever been produced from a
Really?
Texas school. Actually,
Oh,
I'll
wow.
even challenge it and say any school in
Those
the
are
US.
big words.
Yeah.
Can you prove
Wow.
that? We need. Do you
All right,
have proof?
Let me prove it.
Data
I
science.
have
Where's the
proof.
degree?
I have proof. I don't.
Please,
I
we
mean,
need
see,
proof.
I'm not the type of person that I don't brag, right?
But this
I
one,
let
you
my
said
work. I
the
let my
whole
work speak for
country.
Speak for
itself.
yourself.
So,
Okay.
first of all, keep in mind, I went to school in Lubbock, Texas. That's West Texas. Literally, you're driving and you see tumbleweeds
Exactly.
rolling. But here's when you know that you did something good is when someone comes up to you and says, "Hey, we're in Lubbock, Texas, but you make us feel like we're in New York."
Oh wow.
That's how you know. That's the level
So
of the fashion
those
show.
are kind of reviews
that
you
we
got.
wear. Yeah,
So when are we doing San Antonio's? When are we putting San
I
Antonio
mean, there's
out
a
there?
spot that I already found in San Antonio.
Really?
It's just so whenever I do something, I like to do it with excellence and have the right inspiration,
I can be
build the right teams
petite
to do it.
model.
So
Have you worked with any fashion designers, or do you have any fashion designers that you'd like to work with?
So the way we do it, I have a partner. So our company is called Great Minds, and it comes from the concept. We have a slogan that's like, when great minds come together, the impossible becomes possible, and the improbable becomes reality, or something like that. And I should know our slogan.
I
right?
know.
But essentially, we work with up and coming designers, right? So the goal is not necessarily the goal is to produce a Gucci type of fashion show with college students, which is what we did, right? So it's kind of like I did 2 fashion shows. I did a fashion show in a gallery the first year. I did another fashion show in a bigger gallery the next year. And then I did the epic one I did was I did a fashion show in an airplane hangar. Now, when you see the videos and all of that stuff,
We need a
like
video.
it's like you would shout out to all my photographers and my cameraman because they made me look good.
They
Yeah.
got you in the right angle.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that there's a lot of talent out there. Like college students, I brag about college students. College students are the most underutilized resource in the world. Like these are people that are untrained and they're really like experimenting with their craft.
Raw.
And exactly, it's raw talent that like if you put it out there that like people are just going to be amazed, right? So there's a guy that his name is Buru Bitak. He produces fashion shows and he's one person that I would like to work with, but he's not a fashion designer, but he's someone that I would like to work because he was an architect and he uses his architecture to design the runway and because so the
interesting.
thing about it is that the fashion show is an experience. It's not just seats that you just it should be an experience where you feel something, right? So he does fashion shows that like he puts you in a garden or he puts you in a globe or he puts you in space, makes you feel like you're in space. It puts you in a house of mirrors and or like it's there's art to it.
Yeah.
So for me, there's no big designer. He's probably the only person that I don't even want to.
That you
I want to work for him. I want to work for him. I'll work with him.
Like to help
but yeah, because his mind is inspiring to me. But as far as designers go, I want to work with people that are ready to challenge themselves, and because what I realized about the designers we worked with is they were good. But when we put this different, that's why I said I do things with excellence. When we put the different standards of what we will accept and not accept in the fashion show, they challenge themselves and they become like these people were doing things that I was just like, I didn't even know that was possible, right? So for me, I want to uncover talent versus work with big talent, so to speak.
Gotcha. It's cool. So where can people find evidence of this?
Evidence.
Is it on
Fashion
Evidence.
show. Is
We have a
yeah.
website, is greatminds.com.
Okay.
But the
Great
minds it has two eyes in it
Okay.
because it's two people.
That's
Oh,
good.
okay.
Good. That's
So
nice.
is the third person you're gonna add the third eye?
So
good
Great
question.
Minds, our company is a creative house, right? And essentially our goal is to work with creative people, kind of like I don't know if you guys have heard of Donda. It's a creative house that Kanye West has. He named it after his mom. And essentially those were the people that were designing his stage designs for his for all of his performances. So I personally that's the goal, is that I believe that if you can bring, you're a good photographer, you're a good videographer, you're a great model, you're a great fashion designer, you bring all of those people in one room, what can you create? That's the goal behind Great Minds.
I like that. So
yeah.
you accepting interns?
Interns, when I find my next show, for sure.
Do you want to be an intern?
Yes, I do.
For sure.
So what goes into, so how do you just, how do you plan that show? Do you just, we're gonna, like,
So
what's
to
that
me-
process like?
To me, inspiration is number one.
Okay.
So when I did the first show, everyone was like, "When's the next one?" I was like, "Guys, that was like a fluke. I don't know." And then we did the second one, and I was really proud of that one, right? Because we did a show where it was almost like a wedding. Like the fashion designer had like a flower dress that was like the flower girl, and then she designed a black wedding gown, and then it was dope.
Black wedding gown.
Yeah,
I wanna see
and then
that.
and she designed a suit, and like when you look at it in a fashion show, it was kind of like this whole train, and it, like people thought that they got married that day. Anyways, for me, it starts from the space. My secret to producing a fashion show is the space. The space. I believe that I can have a fashion show on a moving train. That's just me. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just joking. But that's the level of what I push myself to think about, right? So I start with the space, and from there, honestly speaking, you just need lights and chairs, and then have people, models, walk, designers. So to me, the space creates the ambience, the experience. That's the reason why I say that, like, for me, for fashion shows, you should leave with an experience. So for me, planning it is finding the space, being inspired by the space, and then it's harder to do it outside of college because all the resources are not just on campus right there. I have a funny story of how I used to recruit models, but for a different day.
We want to hear the story.
You keep saying story for another day.
I mean, like, I'll be on campus and I'll see, like, I'm gonna blame her because I can easily blame her because she's a girl. My partner, she had, like, requirements that, like, girls need to be, like, size 0 to 3, and so a lot of people did. Don't worry, I already got a lot of. I already got a lot of pushback from a lot of people. Of course. So, are you telling me that? I'm like, it's not me. It's not me that I'm telling you. It's her that she's telling that.
Has that changed?
So, like I was saying.
Wow.
So essentially, if I saw someone that I thought could be a model, like, let's say tall, slender, or whatever, I'll walk up to her and be like, I promise you I'm not a creep, but I have this fashion show that I'm trying to have you to model. And then when you start putting all those words together, you sound like a creep that is trying to, like, kidnap somebody. But and I was like, okay,
just
wait,
find a
see my
line.
Instagram. I'm being for real.
Yeah.
Like, it's the best fashion show on campus. Like, yes, but, like, if you, like, we're having practice next week, just show. At least there are other people. Just show up. So it's weird. Yeah.
What you say, it sounds really, this thing you say sounds familiar because back in Lagos and in college, I did modeling. And one thing I love about fashion show is the adrenaline on the day of.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it.
It's nothing like it.
You see the models,
It's nothing
changing
like it.
clothes, you don't understand
It's nothing like
what
it.
goes into it. I just had to put that out there. Like,
it's for me,
yes.
it's kind of like art, right? Oh, it's my form of art where, an artist paints a painting and then he sees his work, right? For me, it's imagine you thinking about something and you're able to bring it out and make it a reality. So yeah, there's nothing like it.
Well, I just want to add that maybe you should tell your partner that she needs to
be more inclusive.
I'll send this podcast to her.
Please.
We did have plus size models.
I'm plus size.
We did,
And in your upcoming show,
yeah.
can you incorporate, like, plus
Yeah,
size?
we did.
So
Everybody, if you
Plus
look at
size
the video,
matters.
everybody was in 0 to 3.
Plus size matters, and then
Plus
height.
size matters.
You don't have to be tall. Some of us are 5'1", 5'0".
Shall
We
I
had-
take notes? Take notes?
Take notes.
Yeah.
So.
We're gonna see. We're on air. We're holding you to this.
Yeah.
No, that's
Yeah,
her. That's
yeah.
her. She needs to take us out to when
No,
the
she's taking
promotion.
us out and you're making changes to your fashion
No.
show. So
So
speaking
I
of, do you have
already did. I
do you have
already
an
did.
upcoming fashion show, and what
So
can we
we
expect?
I'm wearing a T-shirt from the original fashion show.
Okay.
We call it Noir
Noir.
because it's
Black.
It's black centric. Our new fashion show is called Vanta, which is the darkest substance known to man.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Vanta.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So we are planning a show, and I'm just going to keep it at that.
I mean, with COVID and everything, though.
Yeah, so we were actually supposed to plan one this year, but both of us were like, thank God.
And you pretty much already have a set, though, picked out, right?
I have sets.
Location.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the
Stand
location?
corrected.
Because we want to
San
support.
Antonio, Austin.
You're going to find out.
Okay, so it's under wraps. Well,
So, Eater. I have a place for both.
Oh wow!
I
I'm
can't
excited.
wait, though. I
can't
can't wait.
wait
We're going to
to
come
see.
out.
So if you want to work with me, let me know.
I do want to work with you.
Yeah.
The project manager and me,
She's
and the
I need
event
one. I
planner.
need
in
one
She's a
for
me
sure.
project
is-
manager and she's an
is-
event planner.
Yeah.
and then
I
you
need one for
can
sure.
be a model now.
And I
too,
can be the
so.
petite model.
For
Right.
sure. For sure.
Shall I hold you to this?
You
though?
can rock it. You can rock it.
I can walk in heels. So can
No. So that's the problem. That's the problem. I was literally about to tell you that. That's one requirement. You have to work like literally. But then again, we've trained people. We've trained people how to walk in heels. One of
There
the
you
best
go.
models I've had. She's actually. There's a lot of people that are actually from the
case,
show
lost
actually went into modeling. I know at least four or five people that modeled in our show are now professional models.
I can practice.
But there's a girl that she could not work. She couldn't walk to save her life.
But she did it, right?
But she was like the best that actually walked at the end of that show.
Oh
So,
wow, that's awesome!
changing lives, man. Changing lives.
Wow.
Okay, so we just want to say thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming all the way from Austin down here to San Antonio.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
We've learned a lot from you, and I
yeah.
know that our listeners have also learned a lot. We
Yeah.
just want to say thank you. We're proud of you. You're doing great.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Great things. So continue the great work, and I know that the sky is your limit.
Appreciate it.
Just thanks.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks for listening. And
Thanks for having
we have
me, guys.
our next episode is August 8th, and we'll have what's his name?
Bryce Fushak.
Oh, I can't say that name.
Bryce Fushak.
Who?
Y'all
Okay, yeah.
struggling with names, man.
I mean, English is my first language.
English is not. Honestly,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I
not.
know it's
So
not
it's not my
yours.
first language. I'm just learning. So please, forgive me if I mix
No,
two
it's
and one
fine. It's
together,
fine.
and I tell you it's 4, but not 3. Does that make sense?
It doesn't.
Yes.
It doesn't.
But we're
Especially coming
good.
from the math guy. It doesn't.
Wait. Should I even cut you any slack? It doesn't.
Yeah, guys. Doris, you're gonna...
No. Well, we had a great time.
We did. We
Yes,
had a
we
great
did.
time.
Thank
So
you
we
so
hope
much
to have
for
you on the
that.
show again. So
Yeah.
we
Sure,
just want to
for
say thank you. Thank you guys for listening.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time, August 8th. Bye.
Bye.